Gather round the fire, my friends. I've got a chilling tale to tell you this evening, one that will curdle your blood and keep you up at night. Our scene opens in a faraway hospital called the Countess of Chester in the UK. The nurses there cared for the tiniest, most fragile babies in their special nursery, babies born too early, some no bigger than the palm of your hand. Night and day, the nurses watched over their wee baby patients, tending to their tiny bodies and willing them to grow stronger. Parents would visit to gaze at their little miracles through incubator glass, praying their premature babies would someday come home. Almost every nurse in that ward had a heart overflowing with devotion for the wee patients. But unbeknownst to the families, a nurse named Lucy Letby stalked the ward after dark. She hid an icy contempt for human life behind her sweet smiles and caring demeanor.
Why would a nurse, whose job it was to care for babies, murder and harm them in the hospital where she worked?
And for reasons no sane person can fathom, over the course of a year, Nurse Letby secretly murdered at least half a dozen of those precious babies. It started in the summer of 2015 with the shocking deaths of 3 premature infants, healthy one day and gone the next. The chief doctor grew suspicious because Nurse Letby was on duty when every single one passed. He voiced concerns to the hospital bosses, but they brushed him off. And so, the killing continued. Over the next year, 7 more babies died under strange circumstances on Nurse Letby's watch. 25 others narrowly escaped death after sudden, inexplicable crises. Yet still, the higher-ups refused to act. The physicians kept begging admin to call the police, but it seemed the top management at the hospital cared more about avoiding scandal than stopping the slaughter of innocents. The deaths tore families apart. Marriages crumbled under the crushing grief. Bereaved parents even considered taking their own lives. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, the fiendish Nurse Letby orchestrated it all. She falsified records to make murdered infants appear ill. She lied to grieving parents' faces and then secretly stalked their social media pages to revel in their misery from afar. In the summer of 2016, yet another healthy baby went limp as a ragdoll minutes after Letby left the incubator room. The timing finally convinced doctors foul play was afoot. Despite threats to their careers, they joined forces and refused to let another murder happen on their watch. Yet even still, the hospital big shots dragged their feet. The doctors were so outraged that they defied admin orders and forced an investigation themselves. Experts soon confirmed what the physicians already knew in their bones. A villain lurked on their ward, intentionally harming fragile babies. Still, this angelic-looking nurse seemed an unlikely serial killer. Police needed ironclad proof before such an arrest, so they turned to the hospital records for clues and uncovered the keystone to their case. Turns out, 2 different premature twins had suffered sudden blood sugar crashes while under Nurse Letby's care, one in February and another the following October. Both incidents seemed innocent flukes at first. Upon testing old blood samples, police made a chilling discovery. Those twins' insulin levels were sky high, as if someone had actually injected the fragile babies with the hormone. However, their bodies showed no sign of naturally producing any insulin at all. This pointed to just one very dark conclusion. A cunning killer had slipped those wee babies synthetic insulin to shock their fragile systems. Murder by hypoglycemia. And Nurse Lucy Letby was the only common thread between the 2 cases. Armed with this bombshell revelation, police finally arrested the smiling angel of death and searched her home. And wouldn't you know it, hidden away in her bedroom closet were covert mementos from many victims. Plastic bags stuffed with medical records, blood test results, even sympathy cards she'd sent to grieving parents. And most chilling, scrambled diary entries and frantic post-it notes begging unseen forces for help, stopping her crimes. In the months after officers dragged her from the hospital, investigators unearthed the full extent of Lucy Letby's appalling crimes. She hadn't merely killed those first few babies that raised doctors' alarms. Far from it. Police contacted dozens more families treated in that neonatal unit over the years, and as tales of unexplained crises emerged, a monstrous pattern took shape. It seemed Nurse Letby had honed her murderous skills on the job for years. She started as early as 2015, killing a child with an injection of air to the blood, a bubble so cruelly pumped straight to the heart. Mere hours later, she struck again, leaving that first baby's twin struggling for breath as she yanked away the little girl's oxygen line. From there, the horror escalated. Nurse Letby dispatched half a dozen victims that summer with injections of air, fatal overdoses of milk, or torn feeding tubes. Parents visiting their premature babies would discover them distressed, even bleeding from the mouth after Letby's visits. Yet, Lucy played innocent, assuring mothers not to worry, as their infants perished before their eyes. Over the next year, 7 more fragile souls fell to her sinister schemes. And through it all, Lucy Letby kept up her wholesome facade. She falsified medical records to disguise her wicked deeds and heartlessly monitored grieving families online as if following some perverse soap opera, all while spinning a web of lies and manipulation that kept suspicion at bay. But at long last, justice caught up when police discovered the insolent evidence that unraveled Letby's web. After 30 hellish days of deliberation in the British court, a jury returned a guilty verdict, and Lucy Letby was sentenced to 14 whole-life sentences behind bars. Upon the rendering of a resounding guilty verdict, the judge told Lucy to trade her scrubs for shackles until she draws her last breath.
Lucy Letby, on each of the 7 offences of murder and the 7 offences of attempted murder, I sentence you to imprisonment for life.
Condemning the once esteemed nurse to join the ranks of Britain's most infamous female serial killers. Lucy Letby, the youngest serial killer in British history, will rot forever in the bowels of the prison system, paying an everlasting price for snuffing out the lives of her young victims. Yet even as she received judgment for her loathsome crimes, behind that angelic mask, Lucy Letby remained ice-cold and unrepentant, leaving the broken families without the solace of remorse or the comfort of clear motive. Now come closer around the campfire, friends, so we can also remember the little souls she extinguished too soon. Though gone, may their memories burn bright to guide other babies safely into this world.